vision of what pluralism should mean in Pakistan. Yet, I take consolation from the fact that ever since the first general election held in 1970, up to even the rigged election of 2024, the people of Pakistan have shown an extraordinary commitment to accepting, to encouraging a range of different political viewpoints. And one after the other, they have consistently rejected religious extremism or extremism of any kind. As a result, strangely enough, even with the rigged election aftermath of 2024, the fact remains that independent candidates, otherwise clearly aligned with a party that was not allowed to participate, got more popular votes at 18 million votes than parties with a recognized symbol and name. The next party got 14 million and the third party got 8 million. So, the people of Pakistan politically have shown extraordinary maturity. And I want to conclude this part of the answer by saying that on the social and cultural level, which has to do a lot with the political reality, we have the capacity and we've demonstrated it and we continue to do it in the face of all kinds of inter-provincial tensions, sometimes inter-ethnic tensions that are deliberately stoked. This country has the capacity to synthesize and to meet and to mingle. Inter-ethnic marriages have been taking place continuously for the past 7.5 decades. Mobility is phenomenal in Pakistan, to the extent that Karachi, this beloved, tormented, beautiful city that we all love and we all hate, is the world's largest Pakhtun city. Look at the phenomenon of the ability of Pakhtuns to migrate all the way to Karachi and create their own world here and mix and merge. So that's where I'll stop in this initial response to your question.
But what happened to that vision and why did that happen?
Yeah. Why did
and also,
that
I
happen?
think a lot of people, when they think of Mr. Jinnah, they don't actually look at necessarily, because I don't think he envisaged that there would be this mass migration of people, that the Muslims would move from India. He actually thought that this would be a homeland for Muslims, but not like Israel, a homeland for Muslims of the world, and in this case, Muslims of the subcontinent.
True.
I mean, so the issue here was that you kept all faiths that lived here, all of them in Pakistan, but they've all left. So that part of the pluralistic society that we had has gone. They're in Canada and in Australia and in the UK and anywhere but here. The biggest Zoroastrian population from Pakistan is apparently in Houston.
True. This is a very disturbing loss of precious woman power, man power, such talented, gifted, educated people also leaving. And by no means to trivialize it, but we have the capacity, unfortunately or fortunately, to replace them very quickly because of our remarkable ability to achieve high population growth. So per se, in terms of numbers, we are not denuded. But certainly, it represents a grave indicator of a loss of confidence in the plural vision of Mr. Jinnah. However, I am not disconsolate. I believe that at the core, Pakistani society has an extraordinary energy and dynamism and creativity. And I want to indicate that at a time when our official economy is down there in the tubes, struggling to recover, our online economy, our freelance economy, which is also called the gig economy, is today evaluated by independent sources, not Pakistani sources, by overseas sources, British, American, European sources, to be one of the world's 5 largest economies. What does that indicate? That even at a time when skilled people are migrating, there are enough people left in Pakistan, whether they are living in Sakkar, Faisalabad, Hyderabad, Jamshoro, not in the big metro cities of Karachi, Lahore, and Hyderabad or Multan. In these middle and small towns, there is this vitality and virility. But does that necessarily reflect pluralism? Yes and no. Because despite our capacity to send tens of thousands of Muslim children to Christian missionary schools and colleges consistently for decades, which is an indication of our ability to accept other people's faiths and respect them. Sometimes mobs burn Christian houses, which is a shame, but they do not represent the majority. And that is why such attacks on Christians is not an occurrence that takes place every week or every month. This madness grips some sections of the population sometimes. So, does it truly represent a positive direction for pluralism? I do not think so. I think the political pluralism that I mentioned can only thrive when the current situation seizes or reduces the coercive pressure on freedom of expression, which is clearly apparent in the way television channels, social media, print media are being persuaded to broadcast or not broadcast, to report or not to report certain realities and truths. And the coercive measures being taken, absurdly harsh sentences being passed by courts, lower level courts, but the supine, shameless indifference of the superior judiciary is absolutely a rejection of the values of pluralism that Mr. Jinnah stood for. And I say the judiciary because Mr. Jinnah was a lawyer and he argued even for Bhagat Singh, who Bhagat Singh was acknowledged to be a terrorist. But he said he didn't throw that bomb into the assembly for personal gain. He spoke on behalf of Bhagat Singh because he said he had the right to express his political views, and he was driven to this extreme act due to the repression practiced by the British. And therefore, today's Pakistan, we need to do so much more to bring back the values that Mr. Jinnah wanted Pakistan to be showcased for.
But what were those values? Because who's going to speak for today's Bhagat Singhs? There's nobody here. We have a constitutional court now. We have a completely different system, and there's no redress. So who's going to speak today? And also, you talked about Mr. Bhutto. You talked about the use of intelligence agencies and the keeping of files, etc. I mean, there were latter-day Jeffrey Epsteins or what?
I hope not. I hope not for the sake of
that's
everyone's...
that's why those 18 parliamentarians moved over to the other side,
Yeah.
because there's so much on. So if everyone is so compromised and no one is willing to do anything, the gig economy is not going to keep us afloat, because all the money that these guys get paid anyway, they get paid abroad, by the way, most of it. And it's actually the black economy of Pakistan that's the largest in terms of actual money.
Yeah, true.
And so, we are just floating around, but really, who will speak for the Bhagat Singhs of today?
Well, I mean, Bhagat Singh is an extreme example because he did kill people, which he shouldn't have. He mistook a person and they did kill him. I'm talking about people such as the leader of PTI, I'm not a member of PTI, but I believe that his imprisonment is again absolutely untenable. It brings back the worst parts of our history. He committed some grave misjudgments during his tenure, but the way the so-called establishment, the military, the civil political part have aligned themselves to persecute him is unacceptable. It's a rejection of the pluralism that Mr. Jinnah represented. But I believe that there is still considerable vigor in our coerced environment. There are still people willing to talk, willing to use social media, willing to sit abroad and pay a very heavy price of being exiled, and then using YouTube as a daily way to express what people in Pakistan cannot express openly. Perhaps they go to another extreme and they use too extreme a language about, say, the serving chief of army staff, which they couldn't say within Pakistan. But to have their property seized and to have life sentences given is a mockery of freedom of expression. But people are concerned. We are not apathetic. Only because there are not millions of people out on the streets every day does not mean that the people of Pakistan have given up. When Mr. Z.A. Bhutto was tragically, unjustly assassinated through a combination of the judiciary and the military, millions did not come out on the streets. There was sanata and there was great sadness. How have the people accepted it? Then for the next 10 years, there was no sign of a Bhutto on Pakistan television or Radio Pakistan because there was a state monopoly. And yet what happened? In 1988, the people of Pakistan voted and brought the People's Party to power. So if anyone is under the delusion that the current phase of coercion is going to change the basic psyche and the convictions of the people, they are mistaken. Whenever they get a chance, they will assert that the vibrancy and the dynamism that comes from a society that is able to express itself reasonably freely, we cannot afford the kind of excessive, irresponsible, even freedom of expression that sometimes is used in the West. I hope we never have to do that, because there, freedom of expression can mean taking a four-letter word, and attaching it to their most revered prophet, who also happens to be our prophet, Jesus Christ. Christ in the West, under the name of freedom of expression, has become an exclamation mark, has become part of abuse. Khuda na khasta, I hope Pakistani society never descends to that level, and it never will. So the people of Pakistan have great reverence for their past, for their memories, for their beliefs, and they will come through even with this terrible phase that we are going through.
So I really want to get back to Mr. Jinnah, but I need to say something here vis-a-vis the PTI. They don't seem to have political support within parliament, etc. The political parties are not standing up on principle. And I think perhaps a lot of it is because, it's a young party, young people, and maybe they don't know the history. Which brings me to another question, which is that there was a talk very recently where Sam Dalrymple was asked by a young man who's, I think, about 13 or 14 years old, about the official history that's being taught in schools today. And he said that we rewrite our history, and what we're being taught is absolute rubbish, actually. Our history is being glossed over. And so as an educator and writer, how important do you think it is for us to correct this course so that people do know that before 2020, there was a political leader who was killed?
Yeah.
he was executed. That before that there were so many political assassinations. That what Mr. Jinnah really stood for. We don't know any of this. I mean, the next generation doesn't know any of this.
I know. True. I mean, this has been an issue in Pakistan's curriculum and discourse, and this is by no means to evade the truthfulness of your concern and your question, Ayesha, but it reminds me of what Renan, a very eminent philosopher in France, said somewhere in the late 19th century, early 20th. He said, an essential part of becoming a nation is to deliberately forget the past or distort the past. Any nation that wants to be a nation has to systematically deprive its generations of accurate memory. And this is what we did, of course, with 1971. We have not ever really let new generations learn about the complexity of the situation. We blamed India, which is right. India has a lot to blame, but the primary reasons were our own internal failures on a catastrophic level. So I agree with you that there is a need to face history, but there'll never be one version, Ayesha, of history. There'll always be multiple versions within Pakistan, depending on your viewpoint, where you come from, what you believe in, and that is fine. No country has a singularity of history. They all have different interpretations of history. White America, WASP America, looks back and wants to restore the Confederate flag in states of the southern parts of the United States. They want to change history. And that struggle, this debate continues. It's happening in India, how Hindutva is attempting to rewrite Indian history. And it's happening in the world's largest democracy that has never had a military intervention. So all nations go through this process of how to come to terms with their past. And we have more than a fair share to struggle for. And this torment will continue. It's not going to end easily and conveniently for us. It will continue. Probably take us 20, 30, 40, 50 years as we continue evolving as a nation state. Because I just want to refer to this uniqueness of our origins. Every other nation state in history, based on religious belief, has always had an ethnic homogeneity or a linguistic homogeneity. Iran, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and they are not all ostensibly religion-based. Iran, when it was Persia, was territorial, but it was also cultural, it was ethnic, it was linguistic. Saudi Arabia, name of a race, Arabia. Saudi, name of a tribe, Malaysia, the Malay race. Indonesians, the Indonesian Malay race, because the Indonesians are part of the greater Malay race. Everywhere, religion-based states have ethnicity or language or culture in common. Pakistani Muslim nationalism, the uniqueness of our reality, and from there to judge pluralism, is that we are the only national movement, particularly with a Muslim orientation, that achieved statehood without having any commonality of ethnicity or language or shared culture. Culture in the sense of territory. We had Bengalis 1,000 miles away from West Pakistan. And within West Pakistan we had diversity, extraordinary diversity which exists even today. Beautiful diversity, and may it never go. but we had no commonality. And yet, something drove us to start believing in this vision of Mr. Jinnah, earlier stimulated by Sir Sayyid Khan, fueled by the overthrow of the Mughals, further amplified by Chaudhry Rahmat Ali, who is the forgotten part of our history. And what happened to Chaudhry Rahmat Ali, I mean, that's the other paradox of our history, that the man who invented the name Pakistan and the man who created Pakistan never got along with each other. They were at 10, they wouldn't touch each other with a 10-foot pole. And ultimately what happened to Chaudhry Rahmat Ali? Are we aware of this? That when Chaudhry Rahmat Ali, after the Qaid passed away, applied for a passport, a Pakistani passport, here in Karachi, he was refused. So the man who invented the word Pakistan could not get a Pakistan passport. And last point I'll conclude here, Ayesha, which is that he was ultimately served with an expulsion notice, November 1948. And he had to leave the country within 72 hours under threat of arrest. Because he was, of course, very eccentric man. He had impractical ideas. But surely that was such an unreasonable and absolutely abominable extreme to go to. And this happened in 1948, before military rule, before anything. So these are the ironies of our origins and our history, and we have to learn to live with them and let the generations know and grow with them and accept them.
Yeah, but if we don't look at the mistakes of the past, we will keep doing them over and over again. I mean, we'll keep refusing people their passports and we'll expel them from the country and give them 72 hours to leave. So I want to come back. What was the vision?
The vision. Let me go back to Ayesha.
Because there's a question that attaches itself to this vision. And there are a couple of things. One is that there's a lot of scholars say that Mr. Jinnah did not get along with Mountbatten or with Nehru, and that personal relationship that he had or didn't have with them shaped his vision for Pakistan. And I think everyone would agree that politics is usually driven by very strong personalities. I mean, if you have to be a fairly strong personality to be a political leader and run a country, or even in this case to create a country. So in August 1947, Mr. Nehru becomes the Prime Minister of India. He assumes a political office, whereas Mr. Jinnah becomes the Governor General of Pakistan, the representative of the Queen. And he doesn't empower the political office. So in doing this, by not empowering the political office, is that why that political office has remained so vulnerable and undermined all this time?
No. I respectfully beg to disagree. I think the circumstances in which Pakistan was created, though being similar in some ways to the circumstances in which the Indian state was created, we faced far greater odds against us than India did. India already had an infrastructure, a functioning infrastructure. We had no infrastructure virtually in Karachi. Overnight became the capital not just of West Pakistan but of East and West Pakistan. We had no housing to accommodate the influx of refugees. All other aspects of infrastructure were barely developed, whereas India had Delhi, Calcutta, Bombay, Madras, all of them very well developed cities, and they held back our fair share. Now, in that kind of moment, whereas India had this advantage of a collectivity of leadership behind Jawaharlal Nehru, in our case, apart from Liaquat Ali Khan Sahab, Mr. Jinnah was not entirely and justifiably confident that his immediate comrades would be able to provide the vision or the direction that Pakistan needed. The tragedy, the ultimate tragedy was that he was fighting against his own body. And unlike Mr. Nehru, who had the advantage of living on for over a decade and a half and was able to implement what his vision was, Mr. Jinnah had to leave in 13 months, a grossly short time frame. Very few leaders who have helped create nation states have had to die in less than 18 months after their handiwork comes into existence. So, despite that, Mr. Jinnah has, in all his speeches, statements, kept stressing the fact that without using the word secular, he never used the word secular, for example, in the speech of 11th August, which is on all senses a secular vision. But because he knew that the word secular would be immediately pounced upon by the ulema, who he was already combating, all the religious ulema except the Barelvis at the last moment started supporting Pakistan. And here was Mr. Jinnah battling the Congress, battling the British, battling his own fellow Muslims who didn't want Pakistan. So he deliberately avoided using the word secular on the 11th of August. But he also did not use the word Islamic. Throughout that, and I have the entire text of his speech of the 11th of August, he only used the word Muslim. And of course he referred to Hindus and Christians. And there was contradictions within that speech, because ultimately the concept of a territory-based Pakistan with majority provinces with Muslims could not address the terrible plight of Muslims in non-Muslim provinces, Uttar Pradesh, Hyderabad, Deccan, West Bengal, what have you. He opposed partition. The irony is, in Pakistan, I'm so saddened that the word partition has become synonymous with independence. I abhor the term partition because Mr. Jinnah opposed partition right up to the end. He did not want Bengal or Punjab to be partitioned. He wanted large numbers of non-Muslims to be part of Pakistan. And it was the Congress and the British who did not want Muslims to be in a majority in Punjab and Bengal. And they insisted on partitioning these two provinces and giving the impression that the whole of South Asia was one beautiful, ideal country, and this villain called Mr. Jinnah was responsible for partitioning this single mythological entity. So, let me conclude this part of the answer to your very interesting question, Ayesha. The Pakistan concept was not a comprehensive concept. It did not address what would happen to the Muslims who could not be part of Pakistan. But then, I mean, nation states, as I said, is a recent phenomenon. Out of 4,000 years of recorded history, nation states have existed for about 350 to 400 years. So it's a very new concept. There used to be kingdoms, there used to be fiefdoms, there used to be princely states. But it's only in the last 300 to 400 years that nation states have emerged, shifting the focus from rulers to citizens. And we are still learning. How should we become a balanced, mature nation state? It took the French. The French are so rightly proud. They gave us the French Revolution. Liberty, equality, fraternity. Liberty, equality, fraternity in the 18th century, and then it takes them 160 years to give women the right to vote in 1944. So the French nation state took 150 years to evolve to recognizing the women's right to vote. It took America not just the Civil War to put an end to slavery. Lyndon Johnson's Voting Rights Act was passed in the mid 60s. So it took the United States 100 years to ensure that black people also had the right to vote. So the Pakistani nation state will have to go through further painful, challenging phases in the next few decades until it emerges as a more mature, more balanced nation state that does justice to pluralism in a meaningful way.
The wonderful thing about Javed Jabbar is he says so many things and you want to immediately respond to them and say all kinds of stuff. So there are one or two tiny little anecdotes, if you don't mind. Well, one is that I discovered quite late in my life anyway, that there was, yeah, we're finished, that there was the Pakistan Navy was actually created by a gentleman called Mr. A.R. Khan, who became the first admiral of the Pakistan Navy, because he was actually commanding a ship which belonged to the British Navy in Bombay. And when it was announced that there was going to be this partition of the subcontinent, this partition of the subcontinent, there's going to be complete mayhem, he took his ship and he sailed it to Pakistan. And it became the Pakistan Navy, that one ship. It was quite an incredible thing he did. And I don't know how all of you feel, but do you feel that we are ruled or we are governed? Because I really feel ruled. I don't feel that anyone is out there looking after me or looking for me, but they're kind of ruling me and got their foot on my neck at all times. But speaking of France and the right to vote, do you know that French women, until the 1970s, had to get their husband's permission to work? So there you have it. Life is not always happy and good. But we have to conclude now. We have a fabulous film coming up from Jameel Delvi, Javed Jabbar. Thank you so much, as always, for your wisdom and insight and erudition.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ayesha.
Ladies and gentlemen, we now have the film Jinnah, which has been directed by Mr. Jameel Delvi, an acclaimed filmmaker. He has built a distinguished career spanning over 5 decades, defined by a symbolic style that fuses the personal, political, and mystical. Among his internationally acclaimed works is this film that you will be watching right now, called Jinnah, widely praised for its depth and vision in the portraying the life and legacy of Pakistan's founder, and maybe we'll see a little more of the vision as well. Thank you. Okay.
对朝鲜